I didn't get to the root of the problem and what was causing it. And, I didn't have the education. So it didn't go away this time,
Yeah.
It got bad. And then I think I spent like a month and a half to 2 months trying to ignore it, doing this like, if I ignore it, it'll go away. And yeah, like I said, it wasn't going away. And I just felt I was just so like in my own head. Like I feel like I wasn't present for months. Yeah, and then I was like, okay, fine, I'm gonna go to Reddit now. Like I have nothing left. Because I know, like, I've always had a bit of health anxiety, and I know, like, you should not go to, like, Reddit or any of these places. Like, it's just going to make you feel worse. But I was like,
right.
And the first thread I went to, it mentioned the sleep coach school, and everyone was like, this is amazing, go there. And I put time pressure on myself. And once I stopped with that, it got so much easier.
Hi, community. Welcome to another very special episode of Talking Insomnia. I'm Coach Ali, and I have with me today Coach Jami, actually a coach herself just recently. But this is Jami, and I'm really, really happy to have you here today, Jami. I feel really honored and privileged to be able to do this interview with you. We kind of talked about a year ago, and we did work a little bit on one-on-one, and I've kind of watched your progression and into the coach training. It's just so cool to see where you're at today, and thanks for agreeing to do this.
Thanks for having me. It's like a full circle moment.
It is. It's totally a full circle moment. And I'm just really honored that I'm the one that gets to talk to you today. So without any further ado, we're just going to jump right in and just let us know your story here. Give us a little bit of your background, how insomnia started for you. Walk us through it.
Okay, so I guess I was always a bit more of like a sensitive sleeper my whole life. Like I remember having like sleepovers with my friends, and I'd always be the one that didn't want to like share a bed with anyone. Want to be like, in my separate bed, and like I always had earplugs and eye mask, which I still use, but just
me
because,
too.
Yeah. Just because it feels nice. But yeah, other than that, I guess I never really had any issues sleeping until 2021. I gave birth to my daughter March 2021, and I say when she was around 2 months old, so she had like passed that like super sleepy newborn phase, and she was starting to wake up a bit more at night. Also would not sleep in her crib because I was made to believe that that's where the baby must sleep. I kept trying to put her in the crib, and she would cry for hours. And yeah, that classic like anticipating the next wake up, breastfeeding. And I think I spent about a week of like being awake. Like I couldn't sleep, and I didn't know what was going on, and it was very stressful. My partner was sleeping, my baby was sleeping, and I was just awake. But I guess like my focus was so much on my baby that I had like sleep kind of went back to normal, and then I kind of forgot about it.
Yeah.
Because I was so focused on something else.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I always had this kind of like niggly thing in the back of my mind that like, oh, I hope that doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
Whenever people would mention the word insomnia, I always feel this like physical, like, oof, like,
yeah,
a rush of kind of adrenaline, and then push it away and be like, oh, I don't want to think about that. Yeah, so there was about like 2 years of like normal sleep, as normal as it can be with a child that wakes up at night. I don't believe in like sleep training, and it's so funny. I don't believe in sleep training because I know that the body knows how to sleep. You don't need to train a child to do that,
right?
And yet somehow I got myself mixed up in this whole thing. But it was about 2 years of normal sleep disruption with my daughter, breastfeeding at night, and around 2.5, she started sleeping through the night. And then I had like a good year of like, great, like I've put up with those like those rough 2 years, and now like I've got my reward of like sleep, and it's so great. And then around March last year, 2024, it was just it was a classic, like perfect storm of like situations. Like my daughter had been sick for about 3 months back to back, like all different kinds of illnesses. And I went down that rabbit hole of like trying to problem solve, like what's wrong with her? Why is she always so poorly? And anyway, she ended up, she had pneumonia, and it was
Oh, wow.
it was stressful.
Yeah, of course.
And then my sister moved to another country, and she was always a big help, because I work like 3 different jobs, and my partner works in another city, so all day I'm by myself, parenting, working, and carrying all of that. And then so my sister left, and she was a big help, and then so that was stressful. And then my daughter started waking up early. I think because it was like summer was coming and the light was coming in, but for some reason I was like, this is not okay. And then that resolved itself, and then I started waking up early. And then the next night next morning I woke up early, and then and I was like, oh no, the insomnia is back.
Right.
And then it was back.
And then it was woo.
Yeah.
Circular pattern is created. Yeah.
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 And I thought, oh, the last time I just ignored it and it went away, so I'm just going to do that. And because I didn't get to the root of the problem and what was causing it, and I didn't have the education, so it didn't go away this time.
Yeah. I do know.
Yeah. So yeah, it got bad, and then a couple weeks later, I found out my mom had cancer. So it was just too much. Yeah, it wasn't easy, but
that's a lot. Yeah.
I think I spent like a month and a half to 2 months trying to ignore it, doing this like, if I ignore it, it'll go away, and yeah, like I said, it wasn't going away, and I just felt I was just so like in my own head. Like I feel like I wasn't present for months. Like,
Oh, I remember that very well.
Yeah,
it's
like
the weirdest feeling.
So weird. We went to South Africa. That's where I'm from, and I feel like that whole trip, my mom's been through insomnia. She had it for 2 years after menopause, so she was a big support, and she really got it. But she kept trying to pull me out of this. Like, Jamie, come on, she kept saying, you gotta Eckhart Tolle the shit out of this. That's what got her out of it. She loves Eckhart Tolle, like that's her like guru. But
he's great.
Yeah. And I always read The Power of Now, and I thought I got it. Like I remember your interview, and you said the same. Like you think you have this understanding of like you're not your mind,
right? Until you go through something like this, and then it's like everything's lost to you. Yeah, I definitely understand, Jamie.
Yeah. Anyway, so we got back from South Africa, and it was just getting worse. I was just crying every day. I just just the mom guilt as well, of like not being present for my daughter. And so then I was like, okay, let me just Google and see what's out there. And I found like CBTi on the first thing, like Google ad, sponsored ad, CBTi.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let me check this out. And like straight away, intuitively, I knew like this is not for me. I know most people say they're like type A personalities, that I don't think I am a A personality. I'm quite like an easygoing, relaxed sort of person. And I got this app and was telling me, do this and do this and do this. I was like, that just doesn't feel intuitive at all.
Mm-hmm.
I think I did it for like 2 days, and then I was like, no. Yeah, and then I went, obviously, rabbit hole. I downloaded some crazy app that like shines bright lights in your eyes. I don't know.
Interesting.
Like,
I haven't heard that one before.
And yeah, and then I was like, okay, fine. I'm gonna go to Reddit now. Like, I have nothing left. Because I know, like, I've always had a bit of health anxiety, and I know, like, you should not go to like Reddit or any of these places. Like, it's just gonna make you feel worse. But I was like,
right.
And the first thread I went to, it mentioned the sleep coach school, and everyone was like, this is amazing, go there. And I never went back to Reddit. I was like, okay.
Oh, that's so cool though that you found the sleep coach school there. Daniel talks about this a lot, that he hears that, that sleep coach school is recommended on Reddit. So that's good. Glad that you found that.
Yeah, thank you to whoever that person was.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I guess this was around June.
Okay.
So I'd
June
say
of 2024
for me started around June. I'd say those first few months I was just lost and confused and scared. But even once the recovery started, I was still thinking, I always knew it was anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
I always knew that. I never thought like there's something wrong with me or my blood or anything like that. I always knew it was anxiety, but I thought if I I registered for some like vagus nerve toning course, and I thought go in that direction, then the anxiety will go down and then the sleep will be fine. So I didn't know that it was a fear of being awake until I discovered Daniel. But even then, I still thought I could still use these other tools to get me there quicker,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I did the same thing.
Yeah. And then I guess it was a process of, so I found Daniel's channel, and then I thought, okay, I'm going to sign up for the immunity program. But I don't know, I think I was too sensitive at that point. Like I signed up, and then I watched some of the calls, and I was so scared of being triggered at that point that I was like, no, I can't do that. So I signed up for bedtime, and I had Coach Chris as my coach.
Nice.
Yeah, he was really, really helpful. I had it for about a month. I was on bedtime for about a month. And yeah, it was a process. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe ask me a question and then we can.
So you got on bedtime. This is about the June timeframe, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you started in the immunity program, was like, okay, I think this is maybe not for me. And that is the case. Some people don't love the group situation, the group coaching, right? And the bedtime is it's one-on-one with text-based coaching, but it's all the same education. So you're getting all of the education, kind of demystifying everything that's going on. So you're kind of moving out of the weeds of it all. And then after you left the bedtime app, how did your recovery progress from there?
Yeah, it was bumpy, very, very bumpy. It was never as bad or as scary as before. But I still thought, like I said, I could problem solve recovery. So like if I just had the right like mindset or mantra or something, I could get there quicker. And every time I would think something, it would work for like 2 days of this like mantra, and then I would have like a bad night. And so I kept reiterating to me that like there's nothing you need to do, nothing.
Yeah.
you know?
Mm-hmm. It's so true. It's like we have to go back and forth though, right? And
Yeah.
keep like we'll just like, okay, especially when we're in those speed bumps, we get into that survival brain and it wants us to problem solve. Like that's its job, is to problem solve. So it's really difficult not to feel this sense of urgency to do something, right? And here we are in this program saying, nope, do the opposite, right? There's
Yeah.
nothing to do. This is a perceived danger, not a real one. And so this is the process of teaching the brain we're safe. But it's really challenging because we're going through this biology, back to, there's nothing I need to do. I can let this go. I can let it be. And it's challenging. It really is. I call it the dance of recovery, right? Where we're going back and forth between these two internal states of trying to fix it, control it, manage it, with all the efforts.
Mm.
And then back to, there's nothing I can do. And we inch a little bit closer to surrender and acceptance. And this is really the journey back and forth between these two states, until we do finally land at, there's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
Acceptance, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so the whole thinking so I was talking about Eckhart Tolle. Like, I thought I would just go keep telling myself, you're not your thoughts, you're not your thoughts, you're not your thoughts, and then I just wouldn't feel those thoughts. I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
I thought could just blank my mind, and then I would be okay. And actually, I started getting more interested in the three principles and how
Mm-hmm.
they look at thoughts. That it's transient, and
Yes.
and you can't stop thoughts, and no one ever actually has just a blank mind, but you can just allow thoughts to move and know that another thought's on its way. Like, you don't have to, you can just swipe left on that one,
Yeah. I love
um
that. Swipe left. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
next. um
Mm-hmm.
and so that helped me um just identify with my thoughts more,
Mm-hmm.
um because it also made me realize that a thought of am I going to sleep tonight, and the thought of what am I going to have for dinner are the same. Like,
Mm-hmm.
just
Mm-hmm.
the meaning you give to them and the attention you give them.
Yes.
And that was really helpful to me, because I was I was giving so much weight to these thoughts, even though like theoretically I understood that I'm not my thoughts. I
Yeah.
I just I wasn't quite there yet. And then the three principles understanding gave me more clarity on the nature of thoughts. And
Yeah. Just to pause there real quick, Jamie, do you want to explain to our community a little bit about the three principles in case people aren't familiar? Because I know it's kind of a philosophical framework, right? I'm familiar with it just based on following Lily Seiss, right? And she was on a guest on the channel. So that we do have a video on that for the community if you want to search for the three principles talk with Lily Seiss and Daniel. But tell me a little bit about how you discovered it and how you understand what the three principles framework is, just so our community has some reference.
yeah, so for them it's fully it's an inside out understanding. So we're always experiencing our thinking. um so you know if you're feeling anxious, it's because you're taking your thoughts too seriously, basically. And
Mm-hmm.
that anxious feeling is like a tap on the shoulder to get present, and it's telling you,
Yeah.
you're taking your thoughts too seriously. Like, we don't need to be here. Let get present, and you know wait for a better thought and a better feeling to come along. And if a thought gives you a good feeling, then you can get on that train. Why not? um that's kind of a very simplified version of,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's how I see it too. And it's funny that you use the train analogy because that's exactly how I describe the thoughts as well. It's like, you know, thoughts are just kind of these trains passing or whatever you want to think of them. You can watch them pass, we do have a choice what train we jump on, right? And start thinking and take that train all the way to catastrophe, because that's what we start doing, right? Is like we start ruminating on this thought, catastrophizing, have a whole story built around it. And this is what really keeps us trapped. And so as much as we don't have control of the thoughts, we do have some agency over what train we choose to jump on.
Yeah.
And of course, the thoughts that are scary or emotionally charged catch our attention more, right? It's that negativity bias that we all have within us. It's biology. And so it's harder not to jump on those trains, but it is possible, right? And that's why I always say this is a practice, because we're human. And so it's going to take some time to learn that we actually do have some agency over which train we jump on, but I love how you use that one, because I use that too.
Yeah.
And I think it's really helpful understanding it in that way.
Yeah, and it's so true about how you talk about building capacity, because when
Yes.
you're so small and limited, you jump on that train straight away.
That's
the more
right.
you build and the more discomfort you can withstand, paradoxically, you experience less of it. But you are able to not jump on that thought train so much, because you're like, I've seen you before. I know what you're about. We've been here and I can handle it. So
Yeah. Gosh, that's so huge. And it does take time, to get there, to build that capacity and to really understand that you can handle it. You are capable of being uncomfortable, right? Nobody likes it, but it is definitely not dangerous. Yeah. So this is all why this takes time. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the big things for me as well, was the time. Like I put time pressure on myself. And once I stopped with that, it got so much easier.
Right. I had the same experience. Yeah.
Every time I thought, and I think I've seen you say this in a podcast, every time I was like, I've got recovery. I've made it at this place.
I'm humbled by a rough night. It's so true. Every time I thought, like, I've got this figured out. Okay, got this. This time I really have it. And then I would be like, humbled by a sleepless night or something. And yeah, it's like, and that is what I've found too, just as it progresses, is like, it's all an evolution. I don't have to ever get it. I just have to be willing to accept what is.
Yeah.
And that is, I think that's kind of a nutshell of it, right?
Yeah. And another
Yeah.
thing that helped me was when I did have like a bumpy night, just looking at the next night as fresh and new. Like all the, you know, if someone could wave a wand and delete the memory of the previous night, and the next night is fresh, it's new, it's a new opportunity.
Yes.
And that really helped me.
I like that. It's like a clean slate every night. You
Yeah,
get to choose how you respond.
yeah, exactly. Because no one knows what the night has in store for them.
No one does. Like, you're right. Like, insomnia or not,
Yeah.
nobody controls sleep, right? So we all are just like, well, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. And I really had to bring sleep. We spoke about this when we did a one-on-one, sleep down off the pedestal.
Oh,
And
yeah.
work at,
Yeah.
because I have memory of like being that person. And it's so funny because I was a DJ for years and years and years. I had no problem losing sleep, going to after parties, But even then, I would be even though people would be partying the next day in an after party, I'd still be the first one to be going home.
I'm going home.
Yeah, like, I know it's 7 a.m, but like, I'm gonna go home now. You guys carry on. But I still have memory of like having like how we teach about emotional fatigue. Having that before insomnia, like if I didn't get like my perfect 8 hours, I'd be like, oh, I'm so tired today. I'm so stressed. Like ridiculous. Like, and so I really had to bring it down, and yeah, that was a process.
That was a big one for me too. That emotional attachment keeps it on the pedestal. Yeah. And then it takes time to kind of come to this sense of neutrality around it, right? And that is really how we get to recovery is having a more neutral experience, not this huge emotional attachment to
Yeah.
sleep. Like it's going to look however it looks, and no matter what, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's like, and really when we look at it, no human being sleeps perfectly. Like we all have rough nights here and there. We all have, sleep disruption here and there. That's just part of being human, right? And so now, it's like that for me. It's like, yeah, it's just normal sleep disruption being a human thing, and I'm no longer looking for perfection. But it's
Yeah.
so interesting when we are in the insomnia experience, we are so overly attached to this perfection, right? It has to look this way. I have to get this much, and it's like, but you really don't. You're going to be fine. It's going to be okay. But it does take time, and not to like discount how difficult this journey is, because it really, really is. But we are also more capable than we believe ourselves to be, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we are. And it is difficult. I mean,
It is.
it's a trauma, and I've been through various traumatic experiences in my life, but this one hit different.
I totally agree. For me too. Yeah, I would consider it one of the most difficult experience I've ever had. Yeah.
I like your way of talking about post-traumatic growth. That's really game changer.
Yeah. It's so nice to know that there is that right on the other side of this, that we come out with this kind of capacity, right? And this new neural pathway that is like, I am okay. I can handle what comes my way. It's really powerful. It is.
It is. Yeah, it is. Yeah, and
So after go ahead.
no, no.
What I was just going to ask you. So, okay, after you did the bedtime app, things were bumpy for a while. I love how we're just having like our own little conversation, because of course we are. But and it was bumpy, and you were kind of getting over here a little bit in the efforting, and then back into the accepting and allowing, and kind of back and forth like we do. And then when was it? I know we talked a bit in the summer too, when you were going through some of those bumps. When was it that you decided to do the coaching program? You said, okay, this is what I want to do. Were you feeling more recovered, or was it just like, I'm going to do it anyway kind of thing?
I was feeling more recovered, but yeah, definitely imposter syndrome thoughts. Um, but I definitely was, because I was ready to join as a coach in the immunity, or coach in training in the immunity program, even though a couple months before I was like, I definitely can't be faced with hearing these stories. Um, so as slow as it was, in those 2 months, I felt a shift inside of me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Tell me about that. You felt like this internal shift. What did that feel like? What did that look like?
just like a knowing that, like, I'm gonna be okay, and just that my your body has your back. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I totally know what you're saying. I mean, I experienced it too. And I think it comes after this experiential understanding of going through it over and over and over and over again. And to the point where you really do almost naturally and organically become less attached, because you're just like, okay, I mean, I can't, there's nothing I do about this. Like, so you literally just kind of throw up the white flag, like, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And when that does happen, and I think it really is a natural organic process. There's nothing you have to do, and actually you can't jump to it. It happens through the experience of going back and forth. That's the experiential learning,
Yeah.
right? But when that does happen, it's like this embodied knowing is how
Mm.
I explain it. It's like, all right, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be
Yeah,
okay with whatever shows up or whatever happens, right? Yeah, I totally know what you're talking about, because that's how I experienced it too. So
yeah,
cool.
yeah. I just remember one thing that you were really helpful on as well was, this was a bit earlier when I was like still struggling with befriending wakefulness, and you said,
Yeah.
"You have to tolerate this." I was like,
You just have to tolerate it. You don't have to like it.
"What difference is that?" Yeah,
Good. So that was helpful.
yeah, helpful.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then I joined as a coach in training, and that was really great. That's all.
Was
And
that
that's
what was that? What was that in 2024 or was that
yeah, no,
okay,
that
that's what I thought.
yeah, towards the end of the year,
Towards the end, right? Yeah. That's
and
so awesome. I know you were on my team. It was so
yeah,
cool.
yeah, um, and and now I see the benefit of the immunity program because you see people in all different phases.
Right. Yeah. It can give people a lot of hope that
Yeah,
just come in and they're really at that really, really tough point that we all are when we first start. And seeing people that have progressed and are a little bit further down the road, it's like, okay, there's hope. That's a nice thing. And
yeah,
having the support of just all these people that understand what you're going through, I think can be super beneficial too.
yeah, big time. Um, yeah, and yeah, it was still bumpy.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, my when I was in the CIT program, super bumpy for me too, and I know you experienced that as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
super common. And the imposter syndrome, by the way, I experienced that too for sure. So, so common, so very normal. You don't feel that so much now though, right? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. It goes.
it
It's the
does.
brain really does just, adapt to things. So at first you're like, oh, I don't know if I can do this, and then you get used to doing it, and it's I mean it's proof that the brain is pla- plastic neuroplastic.
Yeah, neuroplastic, right?
Older.
It's totally always changing.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. I know. I always, I like to say fear is never a reason to not do what you want to do, right? Fear is always going to come up whenever we change something. Whenever our environment changes, we choose to do something because it's of value to us. Fear is going to come up because the brain's always, kind of looking out for us, looking out for any danger. And it's like, yeah, it's there just to protect you, but it doesn't mean don't do the thing you want to do. It means allow the fear to be there, do it anyway, right? It's like it'll pass. I read this. I think this is a kind of a cool quote. I read this, and I can't remember exactly, but it's something to this effect that says, "Your brain will always choose a familiar hell rather than an uncomfortable heaven." At first, in the beginning, because this is what we know, right? So that neural pathway that developed insomnia, that is the familiar hell, and it's like that's the pathway it knows. And so it keeps going down the same pathway until we teach it another way. Like
yeah,
it doesn't have to be this way. There's this really lovely comfortable heaven, but it's going to be uncomfortable for a bit. That discomfort is going to happen, right? This uncomfortable heaven, but we will get there when we decide that is the direction we're going, right? It just takes time. It just takes that experiential learning to create that new neuroplasticity
yeah. And
pathway.
get to a point where you do what ignore it again, like you almost like when I first ignored it, the first bout of insomnia, that actually is, you know,
There's
it
something
got
to
me
that,
5 minutes.
right?
So there was something
Yeah.
there.
You're not feeding it. You're
Yeah,
not feeding it. And so, yeah, so it's I think the only thing there, and of course you know this, is it came back because you hadn't actually dealt with the root cause, the fear of it. But yeah, because you weren't paying it so much attention and hyper focusing on it and hyper fixating on it, the brain was like, oh, okay, I'm bored, and it's on to something else, right? Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
So interesting.
Yeah, but yeah, it was definitely dormant, like laying dormant for a long time, waiting to
Hmm.
be
And
faced.
that is a very common experience. Like I work with a lot of people that it's kind of, they've made a truce with insomnia for sometimes years, and then it'll be like, oh, and here I am again. And it's like,
Yeah,
yeah, that fear, it's gonna creep back up. It's gonna come back until we really meet and then make peace with that fear. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and that fear is strong because like with everything with going on with my mom, I would still my brain would still be focusing on me and my sleep, and I'd be like, come on, it's
I know, right?
survival. I understand now, but
Yeah.
and I'm laughing now, but when you're in it, it's not good. It's not easy.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. So how's your mom doing? Just as this like
Yeah.
kind of side I
She's
wanted.
she's good. She's healing. She's
Oh,
on the
I'm so happy to hear that.
yeah.
So happy to hear that, Jamie. Good. Hmm.
The fact that she had gone through it and without like the education from Daniel and recovered from it,
Mm-hmm.
um, gave me a lot of hope as well, um, that it's possible. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And now you're living proof.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously, whatever else you want to share with us, but we do have these two questions that I'll ask you, kind of when we are ready. But if there's anything else you want to add in here, obviously, please do.
um, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that helped me get, coaching if you can. If you can afford it, anyone who's watching, one-on-one or group coaching or whatever, just talking to someone who's been through this themselves, who has the knowledge, and also you can speak to different coaches because different coaches have different
Different
ways.
perspectives and ways of saying it.
Yeah, and I found that really helpful.
Me
uh,
too.
yeah. um yeah, so invest in yourself if you can. um and yeah, you can ask me the next question.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that was really helpful on my journey too. And I worked with, a couple of different coaches, and I know you did too. And it's just sometimes you hear it one way and it doesn't quite stick. And then you'll hear it another way and you'll be like, oh, yeah. And somehow it like, it gets in there. So, yeah, I totally agree with you. Um, all right. So the last couple of questions I want to ask you are, if you could go back to yourself, like in those early days, in the kind of the throes of it, the thick of your insomnia, and you could give yourself a little bit of advice, give a little buoy, what would you say to yourself?
Yeah, that you're gonna be okay. I'll give myself a hug.
Yeah.
Because that girl was scared and she was crying every single day. Like, I'm a crier. Um, and yeah, it's hard because when you reflect back to that mind state, and it's like, I don't know what would have actually helped me in that moment. But essentially knowing that other people have been through it and gotten through it, and now
Yeah.
yeah,
No, I think that's really powerful. Future you, like coming back to insomnia you when you were, it's so difficult. It's so, I mean, it just feels shattering, right? And to have future you come back to you and say, give you a hug, first of all, give you
yeah,
that support and love, and then say, you're going to be okay. I think that's huge. I think that's what everybody wants to hear when they're in the throes of it. So I think that's beautiful. Yeah.
that's helped,
Okay.
right? And
Yeah.
like how would I talk to my daughter if she was scared?
Yep. I use that all the time. How would I talk to my kiddo if they were going through something like this? And my daughter has gone through this. My daughter has had insomnia as well, and I coach her. And it's just so amazing to see, yeah, the full circleness of all of this, right?
How,
Um, Go ahead.
I said how lucky she is to have a mom like you.
Oh, thank you. Well, your daughter as well. It's really interesting because I developed insomnia after her. And, having gone through my own experience, not only did I fully understand what she had gone through, but I could help her, with her own recovery once I felt kind of recovered, which was huge and made it all worth it. Um, having gone through it myself. Okay, last question. If there has been a silver lining to this experience that you've gone through, this really difficult experience that you've gone through, what would that be?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is, again, I don't take my thoughts so seriously anymore.
That's
Uh,
huge.
and because of that, I'm less hard on myself. I used to be really self-critical. And when I am now, I catch myself. I get onto myself really easily. Um, and I'm I'm not attached to any outcome anymore, you know?
Gosh, that's huge. That's big.
Yeah. Like little
Yeah.
things happen in your day to day that I reflect on now, and I think if this had happened to me 2 years ago, I would have been hysterical, you know.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I'm just
Uh-huh.
it'll be okay. It'll work itself out. What will be?
Isn't that like the most profound kind of side effect of going through this is because me too. I always say it kind of ripples out into every area of your life and in such profound and really actually beautiful ways. It's like, oh, I don't have control over that. Okay, I can let that be. I can let that go. And this too, like, oh, it'll work itself out. Like I'm not going to be attached to that outcome because it's beyond my control. And it's so freeing, right? It's just like, okay, I don't know. It somehow feels like it just creates more space,
Totally. Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah. And also, it's given me like I always
Oh, you froze.
consider myself to be quite a deep business person, but I don't think I truly understood mental health struggles like I do now.
Oh,
Because
I
I
know.
had that would flare up here and there, and I always, I thought I got it. But now when someone mentions that they're going through something, like I don't take that lightly. I think, it, what they're going through could be the hardest thing they're experiencing ever right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I found that too. Just the empathy that I had for, yeah, mental health issues and how challenging that is.
Yeah.
Yep. I
Yeah.
found myself to be so much more empathetic and understanding because I'd been there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. A lot more in tune with that kind of thing now. When I hear something, I'm like, I don't, yeah. Yeah.
So your silver lining is that you have been able to apply all of this learning, all of these kind of experiences and teachings to the bigger picture, which is
Yeah.
awesome. So huge.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that,
Yeah. And
Jamie.
I know everything ebbs and flows and nothing stays the same. As we know, with recovery, it's not linear. Life is not linear. My daughter's going through a phase of screaming and having tantrums again, and I know that's going to pass.
Yeah. Yes, it will. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I just enjoyed this conversation with you so much, Jamie. I'm really happy that you agreed to do this today, and it's going to benefit our community. And just you're a joy to talk to. So I adore you. So thank you so much for being here and sharing your story. And we'll conclude here, but I just stay on the line for just a minute, okay? I'll let everybody know. All right, community. Well, that concludes our interview with Jamie. Thank you so much to Jamie for being here. And if you need more support, please find us at thesleepcoachschool.com. You can find one-on-one support. You can join one of our programs, communities, the immunity program, and we're here to help you. We're here to give you some support. So take care, everybody. Thank you so much for being here.
Bye.
Hi there, it's me, Coach Daniel, and I wanted to say thank you to everyone out there who is spreading the word. You know what I've noticed in the last 6 months to 12 months or something like that is when I ask people how they found us, one of the most common answers is somebody told me on Reddit. And every time I hear that, it really warms my heart. It makes me so glad to hear that someone went out of their way to tell a fellow human about the Sleep Coach School. If you're one of those people out there spreading the word, I want to say thank you so much. And if you're not, then maybe you'll see an invitation in doing so, or you can simply hit the like button or hit the subscribe button. That alone helps so much in getting our teachings out there and helping more and more people in the world. That was all I want to say here. Thanks so much for tuning in, and can't wait to see you again.